All right, who all was here Sunday and heard Brother Johnny's message? Ooh, only about a few of us. Okay, I don't want to re-preach his message, but yet his message did a lot of confirmation in my spirit, and I want to springboard off some of those things. So if we could go to 2 Kings chapter 8. Chapter 8, verse 1. Then Elisha spoke to the woman whose son had been restored to life, saying, Arise and go, you and your household, and stay wherever you can, for the Lord has called for a famine, and furthermore it will come upon the land for 7 years. So the woman arose and did according to the saying of the man of God. And she went with her household and dwelt in the land of the Philistines for 7 years. It came to pass at the end of 7 years that the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went to make an appeal to the king for her house and for her land. Then the king talked to Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, Tell me, please, all the great things Elisha has done. Now it happened, as he was telling the king how he had restored the dead to life, that there was a woman whose son he had restored to life, appealing to the king for her house and for her land. And Gehazi said, My lord, O king, this is the woman, and this is her son, whom Elijah restored to life. And when the king asked the woman, she told him. So the king appointed a certain officer to her, saying, Restore all that was hers, and all the proceeds of the field from the day that she left and left the land until now. So, this woman's son died. She saw him brought back to life. Then she was asked to pick up and move somewhere. Go somewhere for 7 years. And she did. She just picked up and left. And, it goes on to say, that when she came back, she went to the king, and everything was restored to her. And Johnny had titled that, The Perfection of Providence. And providence is the invisible hand of God. So these are some of his points I want to hit. But he said God's providence always carries perfect purpose. Okay, so I want to help you start down this path with me. And reading what we just read in 2 Kings, lost my spot. Okay. I'm telling you, if this makes sense at the end of the night, it was God. But 23 years ago, standing right up there, and I can show you the exact spot, that Chet, the Lord prophesied through Chet that I would be a pillar of this church. And guys, at the time where I was in my life, I was in the peak of my addiction. I didn't see anything slowing down, nor did I think it even needed to. But I knew those words wouldn't leave me alone. And I told Chet later on, I didn't know what a pillar was, but I knew I didn't want none of it. And so that started me on a path of running, because I didn't want that. And then over a 14-year period, now I find myself in rehab. 14 years of pain. You know, I've said a few times that I thought I was running away from my destiny, but I was actually running right into it. And Johnny he had said something. He said, I thought it was a setback, but it was a setup. And I like that. There's pain in the process. And you'll hear, me say or Melinda say, and, when I help addicts and things like that, and I'll tell them to trust the process. Don't waste your wilderness experience. And by the way, if God brought the children of Israel out of bondage and they had to walk around 40 years to go on a 2-week journey, what makes us think we get to miss the wilderness? So, just putting that out there. No, I don't know about me. My track record, we're probably looking at 80. You got to tell me quite a few times. Don't waste your wilderness experience. And, my wife even says, let the pain drive you deeper into Him. Drive you deeper into Him, because the Lord is collecting all of your tears, and that's what He's going to use to wash you clean with. So those tears don't go wasted. And at this, when I did go to rehab, I had an encounter with Christ. I had a road to Damascus experience. And, nobody could ever tell me that Jesus isn't real. I've seen Him. But, through my 33 years of addiction, I sometimes still have a hard time wrapping my mind around that everything went exactly as it was supposed to go. My whole life. That I thought, why would God let me go through this? Why would I have to go through this? What kind of God would let this happen? But man, now that I look back, He was there the whole time. And it's such a picture of grace and love, and but we can only really truly grasp that and see that when we get on the other side and can look back, because most time when we're in it, it sure don't feel like that. I can't even read my own writing, Chet. And as I remember when I left California on the plane ride coming home from rehab, and I was just kind of sitting there just thinking about everything the Lord had done, and He spoke these words to me, and He said, I promise to restore what the locusts have eaten. And when Johnny was teaching Sunday, I don't even remember exactly. He was talking about the woman's property and everything being restored, and even the money that she would have made if she had grown crops for 7 years and sold them. She got that money too. And That's what it looks like for the Lord to restore what the locusts have eaten. You don't miss out on anything. You know, He has everything that we need. And shortly after coming home, the Lord put in my heart, of course, to help other addicts and alcoholics. And I remember Him telling me, take care of my misfits. I'm a misfit, And so He also put in my heart 9.5 years ago that I would be in prison or jail ministry. And, He put that desire in my heart. And I hit the ground running, and I'm trying to do everything I can to open those doors, because I know this is what I'm supposed to do. But I needed to wander around the wilderness for a little while longer. I wasn't ready. And another thing Johnny said that really, he said, God will open doors that you're not qualified to walk through. I wasn't ready. I wasn't qualified for that door yet. And He knew that. And I still don't know if I'm ready. But as long as I have Him, I'll be okay. So that leads me to give several of you have been asking about how's it been going with the prison ministry. Guys, when I tell y'all, going to that prison every Tuesday is the highlight of my week. It's like I can't wait to get back out there to them guys and find out what's happened throughout the week, what's been going on, and seeing not me or Adrian, either one, do anything except be Christ, and I've told them men several times, I've done the stuff that I would deserve to be sitting right where you're at. I just got lucky and didn't get caught. I'm no better than any man in this room. One bad choice and I could be sitting right where you're at. So I've poured my heart out to these men, and they know that I don't judge them. And I've talked to so many of them since starting January, and when I walk in the pod and they just come rushing up to me and hugging me and asking me questions and wanting advice, and it's man, what a blessing. What a blessing, And I go into, and I am not bragging, I want to show the favor of God. There's been times I've gone in, go through the guard checkpoint, get searched, the whole 9 yards, and then I take out, and you got to go through these 5 gates to get to the yard. And I'm by myself. I don't have a guard escorting me. And I'm, walking close enough to inmates that we bump shoulders sometimes. And, there's no fear. There's no, because I know who's leading me. And if I ever get scared, I'll know He's pulled His hand back. I need to be careful. I probably don't need to go in that day. But there's a lot of awesome things going on. This drug program, this pod that I get to go in and teach is the same pod that Casper was in. What a coincidence, right? And there's 160 men in this one pod. And it's a drug program, supposed to be, that sometime during your stay you'll have to do this program. And if you graduate, get the certificate, and stay off drugs, then it can help you with your parole date. And up until maybe about a year ago, this program was a joke, I guess, in the prison. The drug program where you would go to quit drugs had more drugs than the rest of the prison. So nobody took it seriously. But there's been some men that have stepped up and took over this program and really take it seriously and take, the steps seriously and things like that. And so the dynamics of this pod has changed. And they have recently had 25 men graduate at one time. That has never, ever happened in that prison. Matter of fact, from the time it started in 2016 to date, they did not have 25 men graduate the program. And they had 25 at one time. They had 68 out of 69 men pass their drug test. That had never happened. The only one that failed had just been moved into that pod, and they knew he was going to fail. So we got to have the first ever pizza party in the prison. Had pizza brought in from the outside, and the guys got to have a pizza and Cokes, and it was so much like Shawshank Redemption. Sitting up on the roof, the guys getting a couple beers, because I'm sitting and watching these men, and they're laughing and they're cutting up, and they were free for just a few minutes. That was such a beautiful thing to see. And then the chaplain asked me to come a couple of Sundays ago and be a part of a prison-wide baptism. And I couldn't wait to go. And I get there and I go through all those gates and everything, and I get to the yard and I can see the chaplain on the other side sitting in a chair, kind of waiting for the volunteers to come up. And so there's a few more that were following me, and so we go over there to him, and they're talking or whatever, and I hear this ruckus on the radio, and the chaplain kind of turns his radio down. And a few minutes later, this inmate comes running across the yard screaming, and he's just got, I don't know how many, but believed to be about 6 stab wounds in his chest and stomach. He was bleeding really bad. And the medic was coming across the yard with the gurney, and he's running toward him, and he just jumps up on the bed, and they take him back across and into the medic and shut the door. And the chaplain looks up at us and says, "Okay, let's go baptize some men." And that floored me, because up until this point, anything that would happen at the prison, they'd shut the prison down, and we would have to leave. And every time they would shut it down, it'd be shut down for at least a week, if not 2. And when he said, "Okay, let's go baptize some men," I was floored. I fully expected him to say, "All right, guys, y'all got to go." But isn't that God's favor? And one of the men said, "Wow, chaplain, this must be, like an everyday thing around here." He said, well, unfortunately, it can be. He said, we've already life flighted one this morning. So here it is, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're life flighting 2 men out of the penitentiary. So the evil's there too, you know, and it makes sure its face is reared to make sure that everybody knows evil's there. But I'm telling you, man, God is working. There's been such a good response coming out of this NA class that the chaplain wants to take it through the whole prison. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but like I say, I tell God, I'm just glad you let me come along for the ride, because He's got this. There's a man, and I'm going to tell you his name. I was going to go with the anonymity thing, but his name is Marcus. He's an active gang member. He's probably in his mid-30s or early 30s. Tattoos all over his face. He's a mixed male. And, you know, talks real rough, you know, and when he first started coming to the class, he was very loud and distractive, but there was something about this man that I just couldn't, didn't know what it was, but a lot of the other men gave him a hard time. I can imagine if I'm locked in somewhere with him, he'd probably got on my nerves too. But this man, you fast forward to now, and I come in one Tuesday afternoon, I'm standing there and these guys are talking to me, and I can sense somebody is right here, and I keep turning, you know, and finally I turn around and it's him. And guys, he's got this smile on his face. It is this big, and he is just standing there showing missing teeth and everything. And he's like, Chris, I need to tell you something. He said, they made me liaison. I said, what? Between the program and the prison? He's like, yeah, they voted me. And I'm like, look at you shining. And this man was glowing. And I thought back to that man that walked in there that first day that everybody said, he ain't going to make it. But like I say, I was drawn to him. And I would go to him after every meeting and I would pour positive into him and tell him, you're better than this. You know, you can do this. I see something in you. I don't know what it is. And I in no way want to take any credit. But that man, he's a different man. And having authority has humbled him. You don't even hardly know he's in the room anymore. And that is all God. I'm telling you, God is... how many of you guys believe in coincidences? Oh, okay. I've always said coincidences when God wishes to remain anonymous. But what would you think about God would set up for me to get asked by somebody I don't even like, and this person knows I don't like them, got asked to take them to an NA meeting in Gallatin, and I did. And I'm going to say the only reason I did is because he was a fellow addict, and I said I would never turn one down. So I took him to the meeting. And I met someone there who wanted to start a meeting in Portland. And the person that was supposed to help them with this had fell through and had other obligations that they couldn't do. And just by coincidence, I get to help him with these meetings. And at these meetings, I meet another guy who's done some prison ministry in the past but is not doing anything currently. And I mentioned to him about the desire to get in there, get my foot in the door. And he introduces me to another guy who helps me to get my, everything done online and all that, so I could get it submitted and get the background checks and all that. So God put about 5 people maybe, use them as instruments of me to be able to do that. That's kind of wild how much detail God has in our lives that we miss. Some other, things that I've kind of thought were maybe kind of a coincidence is, like I say, Jeremy. He's at the Hope Center, at the Hope Center, doing what I used to do in the very same house. And then God leads me to a prison where I'm in the very same pod that he was in. Now, coincidence, right? Y'all remember when I broke my leg? 1 year ago tonight. Coincidence, right? I thought after I'd been asked to teach, and me and Melinda were talking about it, and something came up about that, and I thought it was one date, and she went back and looked, and she said, nope, it's actually the Wednesday night, the night you're teaching. I'm like, of course it is. Ken and Johnny both prayed the same scripture when they prayed. When Ken opened up and he prayed Psalm 42. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined to me, and he heard my cry, and he brought me out of the pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my steps. And he has put a new song in my heart. Both those men had the same scripture, and I don't know, when I read that and I hear he has put a new song in my heart, Ken, I think about that bird, that lost his song, So as I'm sitting outside today and, out by my pool, it's kind of my little sanctuary, it's quiet and birds are chirping and everything, and I can think, and so I kind of get to this point on my notes, and I just kind of sit back and I'm thinking, and I can hear birds chirping everywhere. It's nothing, don't think anything about it. But I'm starting to get hungry, so I'm going to go in and make me a sandwich. And I go to stand up, and something catches my eye. And I looked over, and I have put this little water feature in it, and when I looked over, if there was one, there was 50 of those little birds over there in the water feature, splashing around, taking baths, drinking. They were Even in the little creek coming down, there's little smaller birds and they're splashing water going everywhere. They are just singing and chirping, and immediately the thought goes through my head of Matthew 6. God says, look at the birds of the air. They neither reap or sow, but they have everything that they need. So I'm standing here watching these birds, and they just look like it's the best day ever. I mean, they are playing, having fun, and I'm just like, wow, God, thank you. I've never seen more than one or two birds on that thing at one time. And so I was so amazed. I stood there, froze for about 15 minutes and watched them. And when I went to ease back down in the chair, they started to fly off. So I just went ahead and sat back down and got real still and watched, and hoping they would come back. They didn't come back. Not one bird came back. That was for that moment. For God to let me know, see, I take care of these birds. You don't have anything to worry about. He set my feet upon a rock and He established my steps. Everything that I have been through in my life has led me to this moment. I don't regret not one moment. Like Ken would say, I don't want no more of it. But I wouldn't go back and change anything either. And that was a confirmation for me. That was a confirmation for me that I was hearing from the Lord, and that, I was on the right track. So the only thing else I have is remember His faithfulness. Trust your journey. And nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's all I got.